Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harping on Rugby preview show on our YouTube channel. Please don't be shy with the like and/or subscribe button if you can. Joining me to look ahead to Leinster's first home match of the season is the owner-operator of the Post to Post Sport blog. Welcome back to Mr. Ciarán Duffy.
Yeah, nice to be back on Harping on Rugby for another season. I remember when this was a blog, so it's amazing to think how many seasons of the podcast it's already been. We must all be getting old
That's it.
if it's
You're
this long.
telling me this is the seventh season of the pod and 18th, I think, of the entity. So that's getting on a bit. Prefer not to think about too much. So let's move right along and take a look at our feature match of the week, which is of course Leinster v Hollywood Bets Sharks in round 3 of the 25-26 United Rugby Championship. It is taking place at the Aviva Stadium on Saturday, October 11th, kicking off at 5:30 p.m. Irish time, with TV coverage on Premier Sports 1 and URC.tv. Leinster named their matchday squad at lunchtime on Friday. If you're watching on YouTube, it should be right there in the screen. Or for pod listeners, it's in the program notes. Now, Ciarán has picked out some points, starting with the halfback pairing.
Yeah, well, I think so. It's Fintan Gunn and Harry Byrne, and I think it's an interesting pairing because obviously Jameson Gibson Park is probably the number one scrum half in Ireland in general, let alone Leinster. He's not going to be playing every game. In fact, by the time the World Cup rolls around, Ireland may be looking for another scrum half, and Craig Casey is next in line for Ireland. But I think Fintan Gunn is one of those who could find his way into that Ireland squad at some point uh, between now and the next World Cup. I think he's done well when he's played. He in the final, I remember we were all a bit concerned in the final when he came in as injury cover, and he took his try really well in the URC final. I think he's that kind of sniper scrum half who knows how to spot a gap, and he plays the ball with good pace. But I think for Harry Byrne, it's an interesting game. Obviously, his first start of the season, first start for Leinster in a very long time. Actually, in fact, I don't even know when the last start was. But he's been away on loan. His older brother's moved on. This is a big chance for him because it looks like Kieran Frawley is going to be more of a utility back this season. It seems as though Sam Prendergast is number one. Obviously, he's involved in the Ireland squad, so Harry Burns probably going to play a lot of rugby for Leinster this season, given the fact that Sam Prendergast is going to be away a lot on international break. We've seen, I know there's talk about Casper Gabriel coming through. He's obviously young and hasn't played yet. We can't put too much expectation on him. Kieran Frawley is playing as a centre or a fullback or wearing number 23. He's kind of in that Ian Madigan situation of kind of being burdened by his own versatility, I think, and not getting the game time a fly half. And Charlie Tector's more of a centre now than a fly half. So I think this is a big game for him. I'd hope to see him be composed and not make kind of rash decisions. I think something Sam Prendergast can be guilty of at times is trying to throw a big pass. We saw that last week against Bulls. He threw the intercept pass. Try to do something spectacular when sometimes you just have to keep things ticking over. And obviously, kicking from the tee has to be good. But yeah, Gunn and Byrne, I think it'll be interesting to see how Harry Byrne gets on with a less experienced scrum half. And Fintan Gunn as a player, I have a lot of confidence in. Obviously, Luke McGrath is getting on in age. He didn't have the best time down in South Africa there on the tour. Cormac Foley's had a lot of injury concerns. So I think, Gunn is possibly going to be our number two scrum half by the time the season ends. And with Jamison Gibson's age profile, he may eventually be number one.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Of the South African tour, which we definitely do have to put behind us. But I think Sam will be kind of remembered for that try very late on against the Bulls, and it was unfortunate, but the overall profile, I think he was one of the positives of that tour. I think he definitely was one of the few positives of the first game, and then the second game, the first half, we were saying on the pod how well he had the back line running, so that's great. That's definitely improvement there. But obviously, we need to look at alternatives to him as the season rolls on. He'll be coming up to November. He'll be gone. He'll be away with the Irish squad. So we're looking who's next down the line, and we see Harry Byrne coming in for a start here. So he's back. He's be looking for game time. He started that preseason friendly against Cardiff, and then like you say, Fintan Gunn. He's an option as well. Cormac Foley's gone out injured as well as now as well. So as much as we'd want Gibson Park back, We're going to need alternatives as well there. So it'd be an interesting pairing to see how they get on. Your second point is about leadership. We've got someone skippering Leinster for the first time.
Yeah, Josh van der Fleer, and I think he is a leader in this Leinster team, but leadership's something I think in general since Johnny Sexton has left has been lacking somewhat or has been not as good as it needs to be. There was that season where we had co-captains between Gary Ringrose and James Ryan. I think that was a bad decision. I think one or the other would have been the right way to go. I think if you have co-captains, you're going to have leaders in the team. You're going to have more than one leader in the team, and you're going to have different people wearing the armband throughout the season. But I think if you have co-captains in the team, it's kind of you don't know who the ref doesn't know who they're talking to. A few times the ref actually just pulled one and said, "I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to you." Then last year things were a bit more fluid, but again there were games where, or remember the loss against Scarlets, the loss against Northampton. Those were the two high profile, probably the two bigger losses in the season. You're looking at who's standing up here and grabbing the team by the scruff of the neck and saying we're not losing this game. So this season, I think that's a massive thing. I think we lacked a bit of leadership at times down in South Africa. I think you mentioned Sam Prendergast, and I do think for 70 minutes against Bulls, he was very good. I think he tried to show a bit of leadership, and I think that's something that he'll grow into. But he's still a very young player, so we need players like Josh van der Fleer who've been around for a while. He's like for a constant Ireland international. He's in every squad. We need players like Max Deegan standing up. I'd like to see a bit more from Ryan Baird in terms of leadership. I think he finished the season very strongly last year. And the likes of Tyke Furlong, who've been around for a little while. I think just those players who've been around, who've lost European Cup finals, who've lost URC playoff games, they've been around for a while. They need to kind of say to the younger players, look, we're good enough, we can do this. Come on, we're winning this game when it gets tough, because there will be games where it's not. We're kind of used to Leinster winning home games easily enough in the Pro 14 era. That's not going to be the case in the URC anymore. That hasn't been the case for the past four seasons. So, there will be times where you have to say, look, we're winning this game, whether you like it or not. Come on, we'll win it ugly. I think sometimes we have to be willing to win ugly. But the other thing on Josh van der Fleer is we need backup, and that goes for Leinster and Ireland. I think something I'd love to see in the November tour for Ireland is someone else play at seven for the games against Australia and Japan, whether whatever province they're from. But it's something we need in Leinster as well. Scott Penny's there, still young, but he hasn't quite hit the heights he was expected to. I think maybe that's a bit harsh considering he's still a young player. But yeah, overall, I think Josh van der Fleer is a good leader in the team, but we need others to step up. And probably just comes down to an age profile. We have a lot of good young players who, are still quite young and inexperienced, but we need those players who are a bit more grizzled, I suppose, to come through. I think Josh van der Fleer has always stood up, and he's been the kind of player who can take a game by the scruff of the neck. Max Deegan is the other one I'd like to see. We used to talk about the Reese Ruddock All Stars. Now we talk about the Max Deegan All Stars. I want to see him do it in the big games as well. I don't want to see him say, right, Josh is wearing the captain's armband. I don't have to worry about it. I want to see him be a leader on the pitch at all times. But yeah, I think leadership has just been something that kind of slipped a little while ago. And I guess we are in a transition. But look, Sexton's retired now. We need to move on. We need new leaders in the team. Whoever, regardless of who's wearing the armband, we need players to step up and uh, and to show that bit of to give that bit of guidance to the young players.
Yeah, I mean, your 2 points kind of follow on from something I was talking about on the 80 plus column during the week on every Wednesday on Substack. I do a post, and part of it I try to pick the team. I try to give an idea of what the team is. And one thing I said was I don't want to be too harsh on one player and make it sound like I'm blaming everything that happens in South Africa on them, because I'm not. But I thought that this Leinster team needed maybe Luke McGrath not as number nine and not as skipper just for this game. He's a great player, great servant for Leinster. He's still got a lot to offer the province. I'm just thinking for now, I think we maybe you know, needed someone new wearing nine, and we've got Josh getting his first go at captain, and it's just to have a bit of more leadership on the pitch, and hopefully he'll bring that. Some interesting selections in the team. Great to see Jamie Osborne back. We heard he was carrying a knock. We thought he might be out for longer, so it's good to see him back. Obviously, the Lions. are starting to filter back into the team. James Lowe, Tyke Furlong, great to see Ronan Keller, great to see those names coming back into the team, and a new name on the bench, former Sevens player Joshua Kenny will be covering the back three from the bench, and obviously with Hugh Cooney as a center on the bench, that obviously means that Kieran Frawley will be covering 10. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out throughout the game. Does he get game time? Is it scheduled, or is it only in terms of injury? So we'll see how that plays out. Okay, so now it's time to have a quick look at the Sharks. They seem to be building on their 2024 Challenge Cup triumph, finishing third in the URC last season before bowing out to the Bulls in the semifinals, but only finished seventh in the 8-team Curry Cup before defeat in Glasgow and a dismal draw in Newport means they'll really want something from this final stop on their Northern Hemisphere tour. They do have some Springboks returning to their lineup, Kieran. What do you make of them?
Yeah, they're a strong team, and to be honest, I think they'll know full well that they've probably underperformed by only winning one trophy, the Challenge Cup in 2024, since joining the URC, and they should really be the kind of team that are contending for the title each year. I was looking at Sean O'Brien's quote there about their game so far. He said they'll be hurting from this tour already, having drawn a game and lost a game. They'll want to finish very strongly. They're a big pack of forwards with extremely quick backs, so typical of South African teams at the minute. If you're in any way loose or not on it, you'll get punished very quickly. We'll focus on ourselves and make sure we've covered as well as we can. Yeah, I think that's a big issue that's where they could cause problems. Just that like any South Africa team, that big physical pack, and then they play it out wide and make a load of space for themselves and score a try. We saw that a couple of times against Bulls. We saw it a bit against Stormers. This is a Leinster team that hasn't played together a lot this selection. So any kind of miscommunication, I think Sharks could take advantage of. I'd actually say in relative strength, it's probably a stronger Sharks team than it is a Leinster team. In But yeah, they do have a lot of internationals back. Um, and I think I think they'll be looking to do something serious this season because they'll like how with Leinster the talk was they've lost three finals in a row, they haven't won the URC yet, all of that. I think that'll be getting to Sharks a little bit. I think that'll be the same kind of thing. So I think they'll look to just kind of wear down Leinster, move the ball out wide quickly. If Leinster are in any way disjointed, I can't see them not scoring a try in this game anyway. That's safe to say. We talk about Leinster's defence, but it would be very hard to keep the Sharks team at bay for 80 minutes. In fact, I can see Leinster winning, but I could see Sharks taking a try bonus point out of this game potentially because they are a very good attacking side and they'll be really disappointed with how they started, but they welcomed back excuse me a lot of South African internationals, so I think they'll be a pretty strong team, and I think I could see them starting well. And I think Leinster have to be willing to defend a lot early on in the game because they're going to go right for it, and they probably need to win this game as much as Leinster do because they haven't won so far this season.
Yeah, both teams heavily motivated, but I mean, you look at the Sharks. Yeah, they've had their start to the season. They're welcoming the Springboks back, and of course, you always expect a strong back three from a South African team. But they're bringing back in the likes of Mapimpi and Ethan Hooker, who started for the Springboks on the rugby championship. And then of course on the bench, there's experience as well. Bonambi and Vincent Koch are ready to come off the bench. So if we're going to if we want to have established a pretty decent lead by then, because they do have a lot of experience coming on late in the game. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, quick look at the officials as you can see them there on the screen. The weather for Dublin 4 on Saturday evening is amazing. It's pretty much no wind, no rain, only partly cloudy. It looks like perfect conditions for rugby. So that's a good sign. Let's hope that holds. Okay, so for a quick look at the other matches, Kieran, which one of them stands out for you?
The one I'm looking forward to most is Connacht against Cardiff because I think I always keep an eye on how the other provinces are doing. Connacht go to Cardiff and they had a good start to the season. Great win against Benetton. They actually looked really impressive against Benetton, and then their game got called off last week, obviously due to all kinds of issues with travel around the storm and all that. So I think Stuart Lancaster is the right choice for Connacht. I think he's going to develop that team really well. Really, you look at Connacht and think they obviously finished quite low in the table, but last season there were little things. If they had fixed a few little things, if they had been a little bit better in little moments, they would have been getting into the playoffs. They would have been getting into the Challenge Cup final. There were a few little things, and I think in the past they've let games slip away from them. So I think it's really important they go and back up their opening day win. Not ideal that last week's game was called off. They probably would have liked to have played last week. But I look overall, I think Stuart Lancaster, he's the right man for the job. I think he's a good manager. I think he knows what needs to be done. And Sonic do have a strong team. They maybe need to be a little bit lucky with injuries. They obviously have probably the least playing depth. But you look at there's always talk about how many Leinster players are in the Ireland squad. Connacht are the second most amount of players in the Six Nations squad, I think. So they do have plenty of good players. They'll be hoping to keep them fit. It'll be difficult. They'll need to win now as well because whenever that Scarlets game gets rearranged, it'll be during the international break, probably either in November or during the Six Nations. So they'll be without internationals. They'll be without internationals the week before the November games because the Ireland team is traveling on the 21st. So this is a must win for them if they're going to build momentum because in the past we've seen them do well one week. They're probably the most frustrating team to support in any way or I say that as someone who watches them as someone who wishes them well. I can't imagine being an actual Connacht supporter because they can do things really well, but then they can suddenly concede two tries and lose a game. So I that's what I'm looking forward to. Cardiff, obviously, elephant in the room about Welsh rugby. It looks like there's only going to be three teams now from Wales next year. That's what we heard. It was going to be two. It could change again. There's a whole discussion around who comes in then instead of them, but Cardiff will also be looking to put good results together to make sure they're not the team that loses their place. But Connacht, I think it's important they start the season well because when they start losing internationals, things are going to get a lot more difficult.
Yeah, and of course we lost a couple of games to the weather, as you say, last week. So hopefully we'll get a full program on. We're recording at lunchtime on Friday, so Friday evening there's Munster, Edinburgh, Scarlets against Stormers, and then as you can see there on Saturday, Benetton Lions, Osprey Zebra, Glasgow Dragons, Leinster Sharks, Ulster Bulls, and finally, as you say, Cardiff v Connacht. Okay, listen, going back to our feature match now. It's head on the block time, Ciarán. How do you see it going at HQ on Saturday?
I always go with a Leinster win. I always predict a Leinster win, whether I think it's going to happen or not. But I think I could see Sharks getting a try bonus point or a losing bonus point. I could see Sharks getting something from the game. I don't think it's going to be as comprehensive as we've seen Leinster wins in the past. I think maybe 8 or 9 points. Maybe I'll say Leinster by 9.
Yeah, I mean, last week we were saying what we were sort of weighted. We kind of knew that a defeat against the Bulls was possible. So we were kind of saying, well, we wanted more of the performance, and then we got that, but then we were disappointed. Now it's kind of the other way. We're expecting the win, but we're bringing players back in that are just starting their season, so it may not necessarily be comprehensive. But I think getting the win, getting that win column going is primary for Leinster. But I do think they can do that
Yeah,
for sure.
I think just in general, the next three home games. Not that they're guaranteed wins, but I think they're must wins. I think it's good to get the South Africa tour out of the way. Just look where we usually don't start the season with the best performances, and we usually don't do great in South Africa anyway. So just get it out of the way. Forget about that. None of this talk about going unbeaten during the season and then losing in the playoffs. But I think this week, next week in Croke Park against Munster, and the game before the internationals in Zebra, I think they're games we need to take at least 4 points from, and we probably need a try bonus point in there as well, just to start climbing up the table. Because the longer you go without picking up results, the more difficult it becomes, and the more teams start to fancy their chances against it.
Absolutely. Okay, listen, we're going to leave it there, Ciarán. Many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
And many thanks to you all for checking out our latest preview show. Be sure to enjoy the match wherever you are, and look out for that wrap pod. We'll record that on Sunday evening. Hopefully, you'll help us out by liking, sharing, subscribing, and leave a comment as well if you see fit. Okay. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.